Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship had been traveling for 3 weeks now, moving deeper into unexplored space. This was what he loved most about his job. Every day brought new discoveries, new worlds to explore, new possibilities for humanity. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings on the long-range sensors," said Lisa Chen from her navigation station. She was a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. Morrison walked over to look at her screen. "What kind of readings?" "Multiple large objects moving in formation. They're about 2 light hours away, but they're heading in our direction." Danny Walsh looked up from his engineering station. He was a big man with calloused hands who had worked on starships for 20 years. "Could be asteroids caught in some kind of gravitational field." Amy Rodriguez shook her head. She was monitoring the communications array, her headphones around her neck. "I'm picking up energy signatures that don't match any natural phenomenon. These are definitely artificial." Morrison felt his stomach tighten. In all his years of exploration, they had never encountered another intelligent species. Humanity had been alone in the galaxy as far as they knew. But these readings suggested otherwise. "Ben, what's our defensive status?" Morrison asked. Ben Cooper was the ship's security chief, a former Marine who had joined the exploration service after his military career. He checked his tactical display. "We have basic defensive shields and 2 small plasma cannons. Nothing designed for real combat." "Let's hope we don't need them," Morrison said. "Lisa, change course to intercept, but keep us at a safe distance." As the New Horizon adjusted its heading, the objects on the sensor screen became clearer. They were ships, but unlike anything humans had ever built. Each one was massive, easily 3 times the size of the New Horizon. Their hulls were dark and angular, covered in what looked like armor plating. 12 ships total, Lisa reported. "They're maintaining tight formation." Amy suddenly straightened in her chair. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's coming from the lead ship." "Put it on screen." The main viewer flickered, and suddenly they were looking at an alien face. Morrison tried not to show his shock. The creature was huge, with multiple arms and what looked like natural armor covering its body. Its eyes were yellow and seemed to glow with an inner light. "Primitive vessel," the alien said in a deep, rumbling voice. "You will identify yourself immediately." Morrison stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran exploration vessel New Horizon. We come in peace, seeking peaceful contact with other intelligent species." The alien's face twisted into what might have been a sneer. "Terran, so you are the mammals from the 3rd planet of the Yellow Star. We are the Valdris. I am War Commander, Zethkalar of the Hegemony Fleet. We're honored to meet you," Morrison said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Perhaps we could arrange a formal meeting to discuss relations between our peoples." Zethkalar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was cold and harsh. "Relations? You speak as if you are equals. Look around you, mammal. You have 1 small ship. We have 12 warships. You are nothing." Ben Cooper stepped closer to Morrison. "Captain, their weapons are powering up." Morrison raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Commander Zethkalar, we have no desire for conflict. We're explorers, not warriors." "Explorers," Zethkalar repeated. "How pathetic. In Valdris society, only the strong survive. Only warriors deserve respect. You will provide us with the location of your homeworld immediately." "I can't do that," Morrison said firmly. The alien's eyes flared brighter. "Cannot, or will not? We've just met your people. I need to consult with my government before sharing such information." Zethkalar leaned forward, his massive frame filling the screen. "You refuse a direct order from a Valdris war commander. This is an insult that cannot be tolerated." Morrison felt sweat beading on his forehead. "We intend no insult. We simply ask for time to establish proper diplomatic channels." "Diplomacy is for the weak," Zethkalar snarled. "The Valdris hegemony has conquered 47 star systems. We have enslaved dozens of species. We do not negotiate with primitives. Amy looked up from her station, her face pale. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildup in their weapon systems. You will surrender your navigation data immediately, Zethkalar continued. Your species will submit to Valdris rule. Your worlds will provide resources for our empire. Your people will serve as slaves. Morrison felt anger rising in his chest. That will never happen. Humanity will never bow to tyranny. Zethkalar's expression changed. For a moment he looked almost surprised. Then his face darkened with rage. Never? You dare to defy the Valdris hegemony with a single ship? We may have only one ship here, Morrison said, but we represent the entire human race, and we will not surrender our freedom. The alien stood up, his full height now visible on the screen. He was even larger than Morrison had thought, easily 8 feet tall. Then you have chosen death. By the authority vested in me by the Hegemony Council, I hereby declare war on the species known as humans. We will find your homeworld. We will destroy your fleets. We will enslave your survivors. Danny, emergency jump, Morrison ordered. Get us out of here now. Working on it, Captain, Danny called back, his hands flying over his controls. The Valdris ships were moving now, closing the distance quickly. Energy beams lanced out from their weapons, but the New Horizon was already beginning to fade as its experimental jump drive engaged. Jump successful, Lisa reported. We're clear. Morrison slumped into his captain's chair. In the space of 10 minutes, everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy, and they were now at war with an enemy that seemed vastly superior in both numbers and technology. Amy, did you record everything? Yes, sir. Full audio and visual record. Good. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we've made first contact and it didn't go well. As the New Horizon raced through hyperspace toward Earth, Morrison couldn't shake Zethkalar's words from his mind. The Valdris had conquered 47 star systems. They commanded fleets of warships. They had enslaved entire species. And now they were coming for humanity. Morrison looked around at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders, waiting for reassurance. But what could he tell them? That everything would be fine? That Earth's small fleet could stand against the Valdris hegemony? He couldn't lie to them, but he also couldn't give up hope. We need to warn Earth, he said finally. Whatever happens next, humanity deserves to know what's coming. The New Horizon continued its journey home, carrying news that would change human civilization forever. Behind them, the Valdris fleet was already preparing for war, confident in their superiority and certain of their victory. Neither side yet understood what they had truly started. The emergency meeting room at Earth Defense Headquarters was packed with the most important people in human space. Admiral Susan Clark sat at the head of the long table, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had been in charge of Earth's defenses for 15 years, but she had never faced anything like this. General Robert Hayes paced back and forth behind his chair. He was a large man with a deep voice who had spent his entire career preparing for wars that never came. Now a real war was starting, and he didn't like what he was hearing. 200 ships, he said, shaking his head. That's all we have. 200 ships against an empire that controls 47 star systems. Director of Intelligence Carol Turner was reading through the reports from Captain Morrison's encounter. She was a quiet woman who usually stayed in the background, but her analysis was always sharp. The Valdris commander mentioned enslaving dozens of species. If that's true, they could have thousands of ships. Dr. Peter Kim looked up from his tablet. He was the head of Earth's advanced weapons research, a thin man with thick glasses who rarely left his laboratory. We need to think about this differently. Numbers aren't everything. Numbers are exactly everything, General Hayes snapped. What do you expect us to do? Ask them nicely to go away? Admiral Clark held up her hand for silence. Let's hear what Captain Morrison has to say first. Jake Morrison stood at the far end of the table. He had arrived on Earth just 6 hours ago and he looked tired. The journey back from Valdris space had taken 3 weeks and he had spent every day thinking about what was coming. The Valdris commander was completely confident, Morrison said. He didn't see us as a threat at all. To him, we were just another weak species to be conquered. Maybe he was right, Hayes muttered. Morrison shook his head. I don't think so. Yes, they have more ships than we do, but they think like conquerors, not like fighters. They expect everyone to surrender when they show up with a big fleet. Carol Turner leaned forward. What do you mean? The way Zethkalar talked, it sounded like most species just give up when they see Valdris ships. They don't fight back. They just accept slavery. Dr. Kim nodded slowly. That fits with what we know about their technology. Their ships are built for intimidation, not for extended combat. Heavy armor, big weapons, but they're not designed for a long war. General Hayes stopped pacing. A long war? We don't have the ships for any kind of war, long or short. We don't have the ships they expect, Dr. Kim said quietly. But we have something else. Admiral Clark looked at him. What do you mean? Dr. Kim pulled out a thick folder marked with security classifications. Project Titan. We've been working on it for 5 years, but it was theoretical until now. What kind of project? Morrison asked. Advanced combat systems based on human psychological advantages. We always assumed that if we met hostile aliens, they would think like us. But what if they don't? Carol Turner was already making connections. You're talking about using our differences as weapons. Exactly. Every species develops differently. The Valdris sound like they have a rigid military culture. They follow orders. They respect hierarchy. They fight in predictable ways. General Hayes frowned. And humans don't? Dr. Kim smiled for the first time since the meeting started. General, when was the last time human soldiers followed orders exactly as given? Hayes thought about it and actually laughed. Never. They always find some way to improvise. The Valdris have conquered dozens of species by being stronger and more organized. But what happens when they face a species that refuses to fight by their rules? Morrison felt a spark of hope. You think we can actually win this? I think we can survive it, Dr. Kim said. And if we survive long enough, we might find a way to turn it around. Admiral Clark opened the Project Titan folder. Inside were designs for weapons and ships unlike anything in the current fleet. How long would it take to build these? 6 months for the first prototypes. A year for full production. General Hayes shook his head. We don't have a year. Morrison, how long before the Valdris attack? Morrison thought about it. They'll need time to organize an invasion force, maybe 3 months, maybe 6. But they will come. Meanwhile, in the deep space beyond the Kepler system, War Commander Zethkalar was meeting with his own officers. The Valdris command ship was a massive vessel, 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Its walls were covered with the banners of conquered worlds. Sub-Commander Vexthar stood at attention before his superior. He was younger than Zethkalar, but already had the scars of a dozen battles. The humans refused to surrender. They defied. A direct order from a war commander, Zethkalar said. Such insolence cannot be tolerated. What do we know about their military strength? Zethkalar pulled up a holographic display showing the human ship they had encountered. One small vessel. Minimal weapons. No armor worth mentioning. Their entire fleet probably consists of similar ships. Vexthar studied the display. Their technology seems primitive. Basic plasma weapons. Simple shields. The intelligence reports confirm it. The humans have never fought a real war. They have no warrior tradition, no understanding of military discipline. They will collapse at the first sign of real resistance. Another officer entered the room. War Commander Krixtal was older than both of them, with battle scars covering his armored hide. The Hegemony Council has approved the invasion. We are to mobilize the 5th Attack Fleet. Zethkalar nodded. How many ships? 50 dreadnoughts, 200 support vessels. More than enough to crush any resistance. Vexthar looked surprised. That seems like excessive force for such a primitive species. Krixtal laughed. Better to use too much force than too little. The humans will see our fleet and surrender immediately. Then we can focus on more important campaigns. What about their homeworld? Zethkalar asked. Earth. 3rd planet from a yellow star. Population estimated at 12 billion. They have several colony worlds, but nothing significant. Seth Kalar studied the tactical display. We will take the colonies first. When the humans see their outlying worlds fall, they will realize resistance is futile. And if they don't surrender, then we will demonstrate what happens to species that defy the hegemony. We will make an example of them that will be remembered for 1,000 years. Back on Earth, the Defense Council was wrapping up their emergency session. Admiral Clark had authorized the immediate start of Project Titan production. General Hayes was mobilizing every available ship and calling up reserves. Carol Turner was coordinating intelligence gathering on Valdris movements. But it was Dr. Kim who had the most important job. He was designing weapons that could exploit human advantages the Valdris didn't understand, adaptive systems that could change during battle, psychological warfare techniques that could confuse enemy commanders, technologies that turned human creativity into a tactical advantage. The Valdris think they know what they're fighting, he told his research team as they worked through the night. They think they're facing another species like all the others they've conquered. But they're wrong. His assistant, a young engineer named Linda Grant, looked up from her computer. What makes you so sure? Dr. Kim pointed to a wall covered with historical battle maps. Look at human military history. We've never fought the same war twice. Every conflict teaches us something new. Every defeat makes us stronger. But the Valdris have never been defeated. No, Dr. Kim agreed. But they've never fought humans before. As dawn broke over Earth, both sides were preparing for a war that would change the galaxy forever. The Valdris were confident in their superiority, certain that the humans would fall like all the others before them. The humans were afraid but determined, knowing they faced impossible odds, but refusing to surrender. Neither side understood their enemy. The Valdris saw weak primitives who would crumble at the first show of force. The humans saw an overwhelming foe that somehow had to be stopped. But in the research labs and shipyards of Earth, something new was being born. Human ingenuity was being weaponized. Human stubbornness was being turned into a strategic advantage. And human creativity was about to teach the galaxy that there were more ways to fight a war than the Valdris had ever imagined. The countdown to invasion had begun. The attack on New Geneva came without warning. Colonel Lisa Morgan was reviewing supply reports when the alarm began screaming through the colony's command center. She dropped her tablet and ran to the main display screen, where her communications officer was trying to make sense of the readings. 12 large ships dropping out of hyperspace, reported Lieutenant Kevin Ross. He was young, barely out of the academy, and his voice cracked with fear. They're not responding to our hails. Morgan looked at the tactical display. New Geneva was a mining colony with only 50,000 people. Their defenses consisted of 3 patrol ships and a marine detachment of 200 soldiers. It was never meant to fight a real war. Sound the evacuation alarm, Morgan ordered. Get everyone to the underground shelters. How long until those ships reach us? 20 minutes at their current speed, Ross answered. Morgan grabbed her radio. All units, this is Colonel Morgan. We are under attack by hostile alien forces. Implement Emergency Protocol 7 immediately. Captain Steve Adams commanded the patrol ship Guardian. He was a veteran pilot who had spent 10 years flying cargo runs before joining the Colonial Defense Force. Colonel, we're not equipped for this kind of fight. Those ships are huge. I know, Steve, but we're all New Geneva has. Take your ships into the asteroid belt and wait for my signal. The asteroid belt. Colonel, that's crazy. One wrong move and we'll be smashed to pieces. Better than getting smashed by alien weapons, trust me on this. The Valdris ships approached the planet in perfect formation. Sub-Commander Vexthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the primitive world grow larger on his screen. This was going to be easy. The humans had only 3 small ships and no orbital defenses. Sir, the human ships are retreating, reported his tactical officer. Vexthar nodded with satisfaction. As expected, they recognize superior force when they see it. Signal the landing ships to begin deployment. 6 Valdris troop transports broke away from the main fleet and headed for the planet's surface. Each one carried 100 warriors, more than enough to subdue any resistance from the colonists. But as the transports entered the atmosphere, something unexpected happened. The human patrol ships came racing out of the asteroid belt, moving at dangerous speeds through the floating rocks. They were using the asteroids as cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. "What are they doing?" Vexithar demanded. "This is not proper combat formation." The first human ship, Guardian, emerged from behind a large asteroid and fired directly at a Valdris transport. The plasma bolt struck the transport's engine, sending it spinning out of control. Before the Valdris could respond, Guardian disappeared, behind another asteroid. "Find them and destroy them," Vexthar ordered. "Send fighters to clear the asteroid field." But the human ships knew the asteroid field better than the Valdris. They had been mining here for years, mapping every rock and calculating every safe passage. When Valdris fighters tried to follow them, half were destroyed by collisions with asteroids they couldn't see in time. On the planet's surface, the surviving Valdris transports landed near the main colony. The warriors who emerged were 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor. They carried energy weapons that could cut through steel. They expected the humans to surrender immediately. Instead, they found empty buildings and deserted streets. The humans had vanished. Sergeant Tony Garcia crouched in the maintenance tunnel beneath the colony's main street. He had 20 Marines with him, all carrying weapons that seemed primitive compared to Valdris technology. But Garcia had fought in 3 different wars before coming to New Geneva, and he knew that superior weapons didn't always win battles. "Remember, we're not trying to beat them in a straight fight," he whispered to his men. "We're trying to make them afraid. Hit them hard, then disappear. Make them think there are more of us than there really are." The first Valdris patrol walked directly over their hiding place. Garcia waited until they were past, then led his men up through a concealed hatch. They were behind the aliens now, in the perfect position for an ambush. "Now," Garcia whispered. 20 weapons opened fire at once. The Valdris warriors were tough, but they weren't expecting an attack from behind. 3 went down before the others could react. The humans threw smoke grenades and disappeared back into the tunnels before the Valdris could return fire. "What was that?" the Valdris patrol leader demanded over his radio. "Where did they go?" "Unknown," came the reply from another patrol. "We're also taking fire from multiple directions. These humans are not fighting like proper warriors." Vexthar was growing frustrated. The reports from the surface made no sense. The humans were attacking and then running away. They weren't standing and fighting like honorable soldiers, they were acting like criminals. "Send more troops to the surface," he ordered. "Double the patrols. Find these humans and crush them." But the more troops he sent, the worse the situation became. The humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. They would attack a patrol, kill several warriors, and then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. They used the colonists' own infrastructure against the invaders, turning maintenance tunnels into ambush routes and supply depots into trap locations. Private Maria Santos was hiding in a ventilation shaft when she saw a group of Valdris warriors break into the colony's hospital. She couldn't let them hurt the wounded civilians in the underground medical bay. She only had 1 grenade left, but she knew what she had to do. She dropped down behind the warriors and pulled the pin. "For humanity!" she shouted and ran straight at them. The explosion killed 3 Valdris and wounded 2 others. It also brought down part of the ceiling, trapping the survivors until human rescue teams could evacuate the civilians through another route. Garcia found Santos's body an hour later. She was barely 20 years old, fresh out of basic training, but she had died protecting people she had never met, fighting an enemy she barely understood. "Why do they do this?" asked a wounded Valdris warrior that Garcia's team had captured. "Why do they throw their lives away for strangers?" Garcia looked at the alien through the bars of his makeshift prison. "You wouldn't understand. Your people fight for conquest. We fight for each other." The battle for New Geneva lasted 3 days. In the end, the Valdris took the colony, but it cost them more than they had ever imagined. Of the 600 warriors they had landed, only 200 were still able to fight. The humans had fought with a desperation and creativity that violated everything the Valdris understood about warfare. When Subcommander Vexthar sent his report to the Fleet Command, he struggled to find the right words. "The humans are not like other species we have conquered," he wrote. "They do not fight with honor or follow proper military doctrine. They use ambush tactics and sacrifice themselves for tactical advantage. They seem to prefer death to surrender." War. Commander Zethkalar read the report with growing unease. Losing 400 warriors to take a single small colony was unacceptable. The humans were supposed to be weak and primitive. They were supposed to surrender when faced with superior force. "Perhaps we underestimated them," suggested War Commander Krikstal. "Maybe we should send more ships for the next attack." Zethkalar studied the tactical data from New Geneva. The humans had used their environment as a weapon. They had turned their own infrastructure into a battlefield advantage. They had fought with a ferocity that seemed almost insane. "No," he said finally. "They are still primitive. They just fight dirty. We will adapt our tactics and crush them properly." But privately, Zethkalar was beginning to worry. The Valdris had conquered 47 star systems by following the same strategy every time. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, and accept submission. It had worked against every species they had encountered. The humans were different. They didn't seem to understand that they were supposed to surrender when faced with superior numbers. They fought as if they actually believed they could win. And that was something the Valdris had never encountered before. Back on Earth, news of New Geneva's fall spread quickly through human space. But along with the grief came something else. The colonists had held out for 3 days against impossible odds. They had made the enemy pay for every street, every building, every life. Admiral Clark read the battle reports with mixed emotions. New Geneva was lost, but the colony had bought them valuable intelligence about Valdris tactics and weaknesses. More importantly, it had shown that humans could fight these aliens and hurt them. The Valdris expected easy victory, she told her staff. Instead, they got a bloody nose. Now they know we won't roll over and surrender. Dr. Kim was already analyzing the battle data, looking for patterns and weaknesses. "The Valdris fight like they're still in the medieval age," he said. "All honor and formation fighting. They don't understand guerrilla warfare." "Can we use that?" "We can use everything," Kim replied. "Every human advantage, every alien weakness. New Geneva showed us the way." The war was just beginning, but the first battle had taught both sides important lessons. The Valdris learned that humans were more dangerous than they appeared. The humans learned that they could make their enemies bleed. And in the laboratories and shipyards of human space, the lessons of New Geneva were being turned into weapons that would change the course of the war. Becoming more dangerous. Worse, they seemed to view death differently than any Civi War commander. Zethkalar stood in the war room of his flagship, staring at the massive display showing the Sol system. After months of defeats and unexpected resistance, the Valdris High Command had authorized the ultimate response. Every available ship in the Empire was being sent to destroy humanity's homeworld. 512 ships, reported his aide, war leader Nexfor, the largest fleet in Valdris history. Nothing can stand against this force. Zethkalar nodded, but he no longer felt the confidence that had carried him through dozens of victories. The humans had taught him that numbers were not everything. What about their defenses? Earth has perhaps 300 ships defending it. Many are the new designs they have been building since the war began. Our intelligence suggests they have some kind of advanced technology, but nothing that should concern us. Should not concern us, Zethkalar repeated. We said the same thing about New Geneva and Tau Ceti. Nexivor shifted uncomfortably. The young officer had not been present for those defeats, but he had heard the stories. Sir, this is different. We are attacking their homeworld. They cannot use their hiding tactics in their own star system. Zethkalar hoped that was true, but he had learned to respect human unpredictability. Send the advance scouts ahead. I want to know exactly what we are facing before we commit the main fleet. Meanwhile, on Luna Command Station, Admiral Susan Clark was coordinating the defense of Earth. The situation looked hopeless on paper. 500 Valdris ships against 300 human vessels. But Clark had learned not to judge battles by numbers alone. Status report, she called to her staff. Captain Jake Morrison, now serving as her chief tactical advisor, looked up from his display. All defensive positions are ready. The asteroid belt has been weaponized according to Dr. Kim's specifications. The outer system patrol ships are in position. Dr. Peter Kim was at his own console, monitoring the experimental systems that had been installed throughout the solar system. The evolution protocol is online. All human ships are now equipped with adaptive combat systems. What exactly does that mean? Asked General Robert Hayes, who's still worried about the odds they faced. It means our ships learn from each battle and share that knowledge instantly with every other ship in the fleet, Kim explained. The Valdris fight the same way they always have. We get better with every engagement. Admiral Clark studied the Ming tactical display. The plan was audacious, perhaps insane. Instead of defending Earth directly, they were going to turn the entire solar system into a weapon. Are the civilian evacuations complete? All non-essential personnel have been moved to the underground cities, Morrison reported. The surface of Earth is ready for whatever comes. The Valdris fleet entered the outer edge of the solar system like a moving wall of death. Zethkalar expected to see human ships forming defensive lines around their homeworld. Instead, he found empty space. Where are they? Demanded Nexvor. The long-range sensors show human ships scattered throughout the system, but no main fleet. They are using the same tactics as before, Zethkalar said grimly. No concentrated force for us to destroy. They will make us hunt them down one by one. But as the Valdris fleet advanced toward the inner system, strange things began to happen. Asteroids that should have been drifting peacefully suddenly activated hidden engines and began moving toward the alien ships. Some exploded when Valdris vessels approached them. Others opened up to reveal weapon platforms that had been disguised as space rocks. Commander Nina Ross piloted her ship Defiant through the chaos, leading a squadron of the new human destroyers. These ships were different from anything that had fought before. They could change their hull configuration during battle, adapting to whatever weapons the enemy used against them. Target the lead dreadnought, Ross ordered her weapons officer. Full spread, adaptive warheads. The missiles that launched from Defiant were unlike any weapon the Valdris had seen. Each one analyzed the target's defenses as it approached, then modified itself to exploit weaknesses it discovered. The first missile barely scratched the dreadnought's armor. The second one penetrated deeper. By the fifth missile, the warheads were slicing through Valdris defenses like they were made of paper. Impossible. Nexvor gasped as he watched the battle reports. Their weapons are improving during the fight. Zethkalar was beginning to understand the true horror of what they faced. The humans are not just unpredictable. They are evolving. Every moment of this battle makes them stronger. Captain Morrison commanded the defense of the inner system from his ship Defiant. He had learned much since that first encounter with Zethkalar months ago. Now he understood that the Valdris were not invincible. They were just very good at one type of warfare. All ships execute pattern Delta 7, Morrison transmitted. Remember, we are not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We are trying to break their will to fight. The human ships began a coordinated dance of destruction that the Valdris could not counter. Small groups would appear, strike hard at isolated enemy vessels, then disappear before reinforcements could arrive. But unlike previous battles, these attacks were perfectly coordinated across the entire system. Lieutenant Sarah Walsh, now commanding her own ship after being promoted for her actions at Tau Ceti, led a squadron through the outer asteroid belt. Her ships emerged from hiding places among the rocks, struck at passing Valdris vessels, then vanished again. The key is not to let them concentrate their firepower, she explained to her squadron leaders. Keep them spread out, keep them confused, keep them guessing where we will strike next. But the most shocking moment came when Zethkalar realized that the humans were specifically targeting him. Every attack seemed designed to drive the Valdris fleet toward his flagship. They were not just fighting a battle. They were fighting him personally. Morrison's voice came over the communication channel, speaking directly to the Valdris commander. Zethkalar, this is Captain Morrison. You wanted to destroy humanity. Come and try. The challenge struck at the heart of Valdris warrior culture. Zethkalar could not ignore a direct challenge to single combat. especially not in front of his entire fleet. Very well, human. You wish to die fighting? I will grant your request. The two flagships approached each other while the battle raged around them. But Morrison had no intention of fighting a fair duel. As the ships closed distance, dozens of human vessels emerged from hiding and surrounded Zethkalar's dreadnought. "This is not honorable combat," Zethkalar protested. "Honor?" Morrison replied. "You came here to exterminate my entire species. You want to enslave every human being alive, and you talk to me about honor?" The human ships opened fire simultaneously. But even as his ship was being destroyed around him, Zethkalar finally understood what made humans different. They did not fight for glory or conquest. They fought for survival and for each other. Morrison's ship was also taking heavy damage. Rather than try to escape, he ordered his crew to evacuate while he stayed at the controls. "This is for New Geneva," he said as he rammed his ship into Zethkalar's flagship. "This is for everyone who died fighting your empire." The explosion lit up space like a new star. Both ships were destroyed, but the death of Zethkalar broke the Valdris fleet's morale. Without their supreme commander, the rigid Valdris hierarchy began to collapse. Nexivor tried to rally the remaining ships, but it was too late. The human attacks had been perfectly coordinated to create maximum psychological impact. The Valdris, warriors who had never experienced defeat, began to retreat. "All ships withdraw to the outer system," Nexivor ordered. "We will regroup and plan a new assault." But Admiral Clark was not about to let them escape. "All units pursue and destroy. Do not let them regroup." The retreat became a rout. Valdris ships that had dominated the galaxy for centuries fled before human vessels that had been built in the past year. The empire that had conquered 47 star systems was broken by the species they had dismissed as primitive. 6 months later, Ambassador Helen Carter stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Centauri Station. She was a career diplomat who had spent years preparing for first contact with alien species. She had never imagined it would happen under these circumstances. "The war is over," she announced to the assembled representatives of dozens of species. "The Valdris hegemony has collapsed. Their individual worlds are declaring independence and asking for protection from Valdris military forces." The alien delegates listened in stunned silence. Many of them had suffered under Valdris rule for decades. They had never believed that the Empire could be defeated. "How?" asked the representative from Kepler Prime, a world that had been enslaved for 30 years. "How did your species defeat warriors that conquered half the galaxy?" Carter thought about the answer carefully. "We refused to accept that defeat was inevitable. We adapted when they could not, and we fought for principles they could not understand." Back on Earth, memorials were being built to honor those who had died in the war. Captain Morrison's name was carved in stone alongside thousands of others who had given their lives to protect humanity's freedom. Dr. Kim continued his research, but now he focused on peaceful applications of human innovation. The technologies developed. War Commander Crixtal stood before the holographic map of human space, planning what he believed would be the final blow. The Third Battle Fleet was the pride of the Valdris Navy, 60 massive warships that had never known defeat. The target was the Tau Ceti system, humanity's largest colony cluster. The humans showed unexpected resistance at New Geneva, Crixtal told his officers. But that was a small mining colony. Tau Ceti has real cities, millions of people. They will not sacrifice their population centers for pointless gestures. Sub-Commander Raxton nodded eagerly. He was young and ambitious, hoping to earn glory in this campaign against the primitives. "Our intelligence reports show only 12 human ships defending the system. We outnumber them 5-1. More importantly," added War Commander Zethkalar, who had joined the fleet after his experiences at New Geneva, "we will not make the mistake of underestimating them again. This time we crush them completely from the beginning." But as the Valdris fleet prepared to jump to Tau Ceti, they were already being watched. Human intelligence had learned to track Valdris movements through their communications patterns. "Admiral, Patricia Stone knew they were coming. Stone stood in the command center of the human space station orbiting Tau Ceti Prime. She was a small woman with steel gray hair, but she had earned her position through 30 years of military service. She studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. 60 ships, reported Commander Rick Torres, her chief of staff. All heavy cruisers or larger. If we try to fight them ship to ship, we'll be destroyed in minutes. Then we don't fight them ship to ship, Stone replied calmly. How many ships do we have? 15 now. 3 more arrived from the inner colonies this morning. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh looked up from her sensor station. Admiral, the evacuation of non-essential personnel is complete. We have 2 million civilians in the underground shelters. Stone nodded. The civilians were safe, which meant she could focus on the military situation. Rick, deploy the fleet according to Plan 7. Sarah, make sure all ship commanders understand their individual mission parameters. Individual parameters? Walsh asked. Admiral, shouldn't we coordinate our attacks? Against a conventional enemy, yes, but the Valdris expect conventional tactics. They want us to form up in neat battle lines so they can destroy us efficiently. Torres understood first. We're going to split up. Make them fight 18 separate battles instead of one big one. Exactly. Every ship operates independently. Every captain makes their own decisions. The Valdris command structure can't handle that kind of chaos. When the Valdris fleet dropped out of hyperspace, they found something they had never seen before. The human ships were scattered throughout the system, hiding behind planets, asteroids, and space stations. There was no battle formation, no clear command structure, no predictable pattern. Where is their main fleet? Krixtal demanded. Why are they not defending their primary world? Sir, we're detecting human ships in multiple locations, reported his tactical officer. But they're not grouped together. Each ship appears to be operating alone. Krixtal frowned. This violated every principle of proper naval warfare. They must be trying to confuse us. Order the fleet to advance in standard formation. We will destroy them one by one. But as the Valdris ships moved toward Tau Ceti Prime, the human ships began their attacks. Lieutenant Commander Walsh brought her destroyer racing out from behind the system's largest moon and fired everything she had at a Valdris cruiser. Her weapons barely scratched the enemy's armor, but that wasn't the point. The Valdris cruiser turned to pursue her, just as she had hoped. Walsh led the enemy ship on a chase through the outer asteroid belt, using the rocks for cover while staying just out of weapons range. The Valdris ship was faster and more powerful, but Walsh knew the asteroid field better. Come on, she whispered to her helmsman. Just a little closer. When the Valdris ship finally got within firing range, Walsh suddenly cut her engines and spun her ship around. The enemy cruiser, traveling at high speed, couldn't stop in time. It crashed into a massive asteroid that Walsh had been leading it toward for 20 minutes. The explosion lit up space for thousands of kilometers. Walsh's ship was damaged by the blast, but the Valdris cruiser was completely destroyed. Across the system, similar battles were taking place. Commander Torres used his ship's superior maneuverability to stay behind a Valdris dreadnought, firing at its engines while staying out of range of its main weapons. Captain Nina Ross pretended her ship was disabled, then rammed it into an enemy vessel when they came close to investigate. But the most shocking moment came when Captain Mark Stevens realized his ship was surrounded. 3 Valdris vessels had cornered him near Tau Ceti Prime's orbital shipyard. His weapons were exhausted, his shields were failing, and there was no escape. Stevens made a decision that would be remembered for generations. Instead of surrendering, he set his ship on a collision course with the largest enemy vessel and activated the self-destruct sequence. All hands, abandon ship, he ordered over the intercom. This is Captain Stevens. It has been an honor serving with you. But Stevens didn't abandon ship. He stayed at the helm, making sure his vessel struck its target perfectly. The explosion destroyed his ship and the Valdris dreadnought, while the shockwave crippled the 2 other enemy vessels. War Commander Krixtal watched the battle from his flagship with growing disbelief. The humans were not fighting like any species he had ever encountered. They were unpredictable, chaotic, and seemingly insane. They would sacrifice themselves for tactical advantage without hesitation. "Sir, we've lost 8 ships," reported his communications officer. "The humans are using suicide attacks." "Suicide attacks? That's barbaric. No civilized species fights that way." Sub-Commander Raxton was studying the tactical display. "Sir, I think they're trying to confuse our command structure. Every human ship is acting independently. We can't predict their movements." "Then we adapt," Krikstal said firmly. "Order all ships to break formation. Each captain will engage the nearest human vessel individually." But that played right into Admiral Stone's hands. She had been waiting for the Valdris to abandon their coordinated formation. Now they were fighting exactly the way she wanted them to fight. "All ships commence Phase 2 operations," she transmitted on a coded frequency. The human ships suddenly changed tactics. Instead of fighting individually, they began working in pairs and small groups. But these groups formed and dissolved randomly, creating patterns that the Valdris couldn't follow or predict. Lieutenant Commander Walsh, her ship barely functional after the earlier asteroid collision, joined up with 2 other damaged human vessels. Together, they concentrated their remaining firepower on a single Valdris cruiser, overwhelming its defenses through coordinated strikes. Commander Torres used his ship to draw enemy fire, while Captain Ross approached from behind. When the Valdris ship focused on Torres, Ross struck its undefended rear section with everything she had. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, the Valdris 3rd Battle Fleet had been shattered. Of 60 ships, only 30 remained operational. The humans had lost 11 vessels, but they had proven something important. Krikstal stared at his tactical display in shock. This was supposed to be an easy victory against primitive opponents. Instead, it had been the worst defeat in Valdris military history. "How did they do it?" he asked quietly. "How did 18 ships defeat 60? His tactical officer had been analyzing the battle patterns. "Sir, they didn't fight like a fleet. They fought like a pack of predators. Every ship was both independent and coordinated. We couldn't predict their movements because they kept changing their strategy." "And the suicide attacks?" "I don't think they were suicide attacks, sir. I think they were calculated sacrifices. Each human who died accomplished a specific tactical objective." Krikstal felt something he had never experienced before in his military career. Fear. Not fear of death, which was honorable, but fear of an enemy he couldn't understand. Meanwhile, Admiral Stone was receiving reports from across the system. The key cost had been heavy, but the victory was complete. Captain Stevens and the others who had died would be remembered as heroes. "Send a message to Earth Command," she told Torres. "Tell them the Valdris can be beaten. Their tactics are predictable, but ours don't have to be." Dr. Kim, monitoring the battle from Earth, was already analyzing the data. The humans had discovered something crucial about their enemies. The Valdris were individually superior warriors, but they couldn't adapt to changing conditions quickly enough. "We're learning their weaknesses," he told Admiral Clark. "They think in straight lines. We think in spirals. They follow rigid doctrine. We improvise. Can we exploit this advantage? We already are. Every battle teaches us more about how they think, and every battle teaches them that they don't understand how we think." The news of Tau Ceti spread throughout both human and Valdris space. Humans celebrated their first major victory, proof that the alien invaders could be defeated. The Valdris High Command began to realize that they were fighting an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. War Commander Zeth Kalar read the battle reports with growing unease. The humans were learning from each engagement, adapting their tactics,